Don't you want to come out here to film?
It's warm in here and it's dry.
It's not raining that bad.
So if you've not been caught up on what we're doing to the Corrado in the past month or two, let me give you a quick rundown if you're new to the channel or if you just haven't watched a few of the videos. This is what's been going on. In the last video I took the whole front end off to just kind of see what's behind it. It was more for an excuse to actually just take the front end off, but I wanted to see like what's going on behind the scenes, what things could do with replacing, what's rusted, what's happening in the heart of the Corrado. We took the whole front end off, took all the coolant out, power steering is drained. For in time for this video, where I'm going to be swapping out the sump and the oil filter. I've also swapped out the coolant housing on this. Because you'll see later on in the video, but I only plan to replace one pipe, and then I took that pipe off and decided, you know what, it's probably better if I just change the whole thing. And then lastly, let me quickly go and grab it. I've got a brand new oil cooler ready to go on. It already had an oil cooler on it. The reason I took it off is because I wanted to relocate it, because it was kind of sat like right at the front in the side of the bumper, and it wasn't really getting any air to it. So I decided we'll take it off and relocate it right to the front where it's just going to get fresh air. But whilst I'm doing the original connections, they were on there for so long, they'd seized up together, and when I was using the old wrench and kind of prying it off, that's when this whole part just it just came apart. So that's when I decided it's probably better that I buy a new oil cooler. So we're going to go back in time to the start of all of this. I'm going to be replacing the sump, because I've got a brand new sump and the oil filter, and then we're going to change the coolant housing, and then I'll catch up with you guys when that's done, because at the moment I'm just waiting on the hoses to come, and then we can finally get this in and hopefully get the car back in one piece. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so today we've got the job of changing the oil pan, the gasket and the oil filter. Instead of going for the standard VR6 sump, which looks like this, you can get the later 3.2 sumps, specifically the Mark V and the later A3s with the 3.2 engines. Them ones are shallower and they're baffled. They're also triple or even quadruple the price of what I paid for this one. These ones, because of what they're made of, they bend. The 3.2 sumps are made of aluminium and they just crack in case you hit the floor with it, because we are quite low. Then we've got an L-ring gasket, oil filter, and then the oil in a tube. And all of these parts, apart from the oil, I got all these parts from Heritage Parts Centre, so big thanks to them guys for providing the parts. The first thing that we're going to do is drain the oil and then take the oil filter out. So let's crack on with that.
I hope you guys have a good angle of this because it's quite tight down here. Let's get this sump bolt out. There we go. And then once this is all drained out, the next thing to do is to get the oil filter out just at the front of the engine.
I'm gonna go grab my glove because I know I'm about to be drenched. Nice. Next up is to get the new filter into the same housing that we just took out. So we'll swap over the filter and then straight away we're gonna get the sump off, see if there's any bits inside. Hopefully there's not like plastic or anything. So I remember when I took the Audi TT sump off, there was plastic from oil dipstick in there. So we'll see what it's looking like on the inside. And then we'll get the new gasket and new sump on.
There's bolts just all around the outside. I think they should be M5. That should be a size 5 Allen key. The sump is off. And here's what it's looking like underneath and inside. What I want to do is get the edge of the sump where the gasket's going to go cleaned up so that there's going to be no leaks in the future.
It's not looking too bad on the inside. Thankfully there's no like bits in there. However, it's a bit of a different story from that side, which is why I wanted to change it in the first place. The entire thing has been scraped many times.
You could probably just about see all of this has been scraped off and it's had many hits. The bolt that is now in the box was shaved in half. While I'm here as well, I've taken the oil cooler out. That was not easy, as you might have noticed. Now I've a plaster, man. I'm not getting into that. It is the new sump, looking lovely and clean. It's a top brand sump with the bolt already inside. Exactly the same as what I took off, I think. So I'm gonna get this installed now. Just trying to clean as best as I can around where the new gasket's gonna sit. I think what someone else did in the past was put gasket and sealer, because here's the gasket which is coming off bit by bit, and I keep seeing this green sealer stuck everywhere, which is making it an absolute mission to try and get all of this off. Alright, first up on the list of things that need to be changed today, I look so white right now, is this coolant pipe. This is what's commonly known as the crack pipe. It's this part right here, and it loves to leak from especially this side of the pipe. And it's only held in from some bolts where the thermostat housing is. So let's go ahead. Right, there was this thing, which is actually a little screw, a little bung, which comes out, which now made me obviously realise that the old one also has this. You can't see it because it's in the complete shadow, but right there, there's a bung. There we go. Right, and while that finishes up doing its thing, I'm going to carry on doing my thing and trying to get this out. So here's the thing. The plan was to get this out and replace it because it might leak. Judging by the looks of this, I wanted to get the full housing out for the sensors and the thermostat. And I'm glad I did, because that looks a mess. That's the gasket that's been sitting in there. It looks like they've used copper spray paint for coolant. Order a new housing, this entire thing, new gaskets, probably new bolts as well. Yeah, again, this is more money that I'm going to be spending. I think the entire cooling system needs a good flush out, because that's either been sat in there for years, or that could possibly be head gasket. It looks like it could possibly have oil in there. The oil level never dropped, so I don't think it's actually leaking any oil into here. I think this is just really old residue and coolant. So I'm going to crack these open, and I think the thermostat is in here, so I'm going to get that out. Time to see what this looks like in here. Alright, I'm going to take a picture of the way that was in, because there's an arrow pointing that way, and I want to remember that. Oh, it's like someone's. That is so dirty. Change your coolant, guys, please. Saves this hassle 25 years on. The parts are starting to arrive. That's the one I'm more excited about, but let me quickly show you what we've got in here. So these were just ordered off of Heritage Parts, and it's all the coolant stuff that I said I'd need. That's the complete housing for the thermostat and the temperature sensors. A new thermostat as well. Look at that, not absolutely caked in coolant like the other one. Coolant and rust, I think it was. Basically that will sit in there the other way around. And then I've also grabbed some second-hand bolts just as backups, just in case any of the ones that I've got are a bit rounded or rusty. So we've got backup stuff. But the biggest thanks that I have to give is to Matt Hipkiss over on Instagram. What he found is an old but new Mocal oil cooler, the whole kit, which has never been fitted. He was planning on installing this onto his VR6, but then he did an engine swap, so he never actually needed it. 13 row, 1/2 inch BSP fittings, which is what these things are. Still confuses me a bit because there's so many fittings that you can order. But I just went for the exact same one that is currently on there. And it comes with a new sandwich plate as well.
I got the standard oil cooler off, I got the sandwich plate off, and also the bolt that was holding the two together. I'm just in the process of trying to clean up the standard oil cooler, just trying to clean it up on where the seals sit. I got brand new seals from Euro Car Parts, hoping they're the right fit, they look the right size. Instead of reusing the old sandwich plate, I've got this one. But what I was thinking of doing is using that one, but this one's different. This is one of the ones with a thermostat type housing into it, which is what this bit at the bottom is. And that helps just warm it up on a first start, and then it opens up to keep the temperatures down. So I'm actually thinking I'll stick with this one now. I'll just swap the seal over and stick with this. This is, I think, how I'm gonna have the cooler sitting. At the moment, it's just held down with one bolt, just to keep things steady while I'm trying it, testing it, trial and error of this thing. The problem that I've got is that the hoses that came with this oil cooler are so short. I've had to use one side going left and another side off of the old cooler kit to go right and then around and in. I think that should fit just about. It should be able to bolt onto the sandwich plate like this. But before I start bolting everything back up, I'm gonna now need to put on all of the coolant stuff again, because I took all of the coolant stuff off. I've just put the radiator there to see what room I've got to work with. Now it's gonna be a time lapse of me putting everything, I'm gonna put it all back together. I've given all of the things a bit of a clean. So let's, in one swift movement, get all of this back together. Right, it's that time of day. What has Brad bodged now? When you're trying to put the lower rad support back on, there's 4 bolts which have to go in. 2 go into the bumper, 1 goes into the cross member, and then the other one, and the 4th one goes into the chassis. It's a very, very common thing on these Corrados that one of these bolts, either side, snaps off or just goes missing. You go to take your bumper off, you go to take this off, and there's no bolt even there. And that's what you saw in the last video when I took the bolt out. One of them came out like this, and the other one came out like this, with the other half still trapped in the subframe. So I tried drilling the other half out, but it didn't happen. And what eventually happened, the tiny piece of metal that it actually screws into snapped off instead. And as you can see, I've tried to be drilling this out, but it's just not happening. I've got the new bolts, and what people suggested online is to weld a nut with the same kind of thread size as the bolt into the rad support. I don't have a welder. So what I've used instead, the 2-part bonding araldite, these things, which I had left over from that time that there was a boost leak in the intercooler pipe on my Golf, and I used this because I didn't have a welder, and it held up. It held up for the rest of the time that I owned it. So I'm trusting this to, let me show you how I've done it. So that's how I've done it. Before you go screaming at me and shouting at me, just hear me out. The fact that these bolts even go missing when people take the bumper off and take the rad support out shows that it's only there really for alignment, I think. It does a little bit of supporting, but the other 3 thicker bolts do the rest of the supporting. 2 of them go that side and that side, and the last one goes on the outside. So I'll let you know in a few hours when it's dry if it's hot. Before putting everything back on and tightening everything back up, I gave the radiator a quick flush of just some fresh water, as well as the actual coolant system inside the engine as well. Let it just sit, make sure there's no leaks. Looked under the car, didn't see any leaks, so I think we're all good for that. The amount of shit that still comes out of this stuff. It's a really good idea to flush out your coolant system again 2 or 3 times before filling it up with actual coolant. Just flush it out with some water. I filled the engine up with oil before tightening everything up on the front end, just to make sure there's no actual leaks. And I did see one leak, well, what I thought was a leak. I looked underneath the car and I saw it was slowly dripping from somewhere. Looked up, it looked like it was coming from the oil cooler. Started to shit myself a little bit. Thankfully, it was just my bad aim. Where I poured the oil, I missed the hole basically, and it ran kind of inside down the inlet manifold and dropped down to the bottom. So fingers crossed that we are good to go. And I'm so confused by how there's like snow coming in. I've just had a fight with the car, so I think this is a good time to stop the video. I've done so much in this video, I think, yeah, we should finally stop. You saw me try and put the bonnet cable back on. I was kind of rushing it, just trying to get the car back together. I didn't really think, I should have just stopped and had a little think, but I put it on wrong and then closed the bonnet like, yeah, whatever, we'll try it. And I couldn't get the bonnet back open. The Corolla has 2 bonnet latches with some crazy design. Whoever came up with the idea of the bonnet latch being like this is a genius, but also crazy. And yeah, I got that one off, but this one was stuck inside. I got a fat headache now, trying to undo it, and my hands are absolutely shredded. But we did what we wanted to do. We got the oil coolant in, got the pipes in. I just need to tidy them up a little bit. It does fit, it's just quite squished up against this front panel. I mean, if it works, I'm happy. If it doesn't work, I'll just move over to the right a bit more. I'm cold, I want to get this video up, so we're going to end it by trying to shut the bonnet and see if it opens. And if it doesn't, I'm saving it for next week. Oh no. Oh, come on. Oh, fuck me. Okay, it did open. It didn't look like it wanted to open, but it did open. All right. that stopped my heart for a minute. Right, cool guys. Really hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, we're going to get the headlights back in and the bumper back on and get the car started up again, because it's got the oil in it now. I just need to put the rest of the coolant in and power steering fluid, and then we can start it up. Happy days, hopefully. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more work on the Corrado, I'm gonna literally, this is my baby. I'm trying not to hurt it, but everything I do to it seems to just be messing it up even more. But right, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.